Good afternoon, leaders of District 20. First, a big thank you to all of you for joining our webinar today. District 20 had initiated many webinars this term. After the successful conduct of the contest judging and chief judging workshops, both in Kuwait and Bahrain, Good afternoon, leaders of District 20. Thank you all for joining this webinar of Judging and Chief Judging Workshop. District 20 has initiated many webinars this term. After the successful conduct of contest judging and chief judging workshop, Good afternoon, leaders of District 20. A big thank you to one and all for attending today's webinar. District 20 has initiated many webinars this term. After the successful conduct of the contest judging and chief judging workshops, both in Kuwait and Bahrain, our Program Quality Director, DTM Mohammed Salim, has initiated to organize this webinar for the District 20 members. With the contest season happening, knowing the depth of judging and chief judging rules and regulations in the contest, in order to sharpen our knowledge, to enhance our skills to become better judges and chief judges, this webinar is brought to you, and it's all about learning. We have with us today two eminent, versatile senior Toastmasters as presenters in today's webinar. We will be first having the judging presentation, and to present to us the judging session, or the judging session for you all today. We have with us DTM Joel Entrupati. He's a member of Manama Toastmasters for the past 17 years. He is also a member of TKS Toastmasters Club for the last 9 years. He has represented Bahrain in Dubai, Kuwait, and Jordan for the last 3 years consecutively, both in humorous speech contest and table topic contest. DTM Joel Entrupati is the Division C Governor during the term 2009-2010. He teaches business management courses at the University of Bahrain. Before I welcome DTM Joel Entrupati, just to remind all the attendees that we will be having the question answer session after the presentation. So with immense pleasure, it gives me great privilege to introduce our first presenter, DTM Joel Entrupati.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and a very warm welcome to this Judges Training Workshop, which I will be leading for a little while before Toastmaster Madhavi comes to lead you through the Chief Judges Training. I'm sure most of you who are attending this have either been contestants or have been judges, or if you have not yet been a judge, I think this is the right opportunity for you to learn or find out what matters when it comes to judging. So I must first appreciate you that you have registered for this webinar, because it's an indication that you're interested in knowing or learning about how judging happens in the Toastmasters clubs, especially when we have many different contests. And another reason I'm sure some of you may have joined is because you wanted to know why sometimes judging seems wrong to some at the end of a contest. So therefore, I first wanted to congratulate you or welcome you to this because of your goodwill that you have decided to join this judges training because you have the desire to learn about how judging happens in the Toastmasters clubs. So that's why I said, first of all, I want to thank you and congratulate you for taking this decision and welcome you to the judges training workshop. But before I start the judges training workshop itself, I thought it is important for all of you to know that what matters in the judges training is how a judge who is judging a contest should be clear about the various items that the contest is actually judging on the ballot. But all that, of course, we will come to in a short while. But my first question to all of you is this. I want to know, why should we have contests? I actually have this audience view, and I don't know if any of you wish to answer this by raising your hand, but probably we'll do that a little later. But why should we have these contests? I think if you have been a Toastmaster for many years, and if you have attended many Toastmasters events, and especially contests at the area, division, or the district levels, you would have heard the contest chair tell the purpose of these contests at the beginning of the introduction. Why this particular contest or why these contests are held. But we all will agree, if you look at the screens there, that we have contests for at least three reasons, the three purposes of the speech contests. Now, what are the three main purposes of the speech contest? I'm sure you will agree that the first one is to provide an opportunity to practice competitive speaking. All of us have joined the Toastmasters with an intention to improve our ability to speak from stages, to increase our ability to perform on stage in a reasonably sound manner. Public speaking skills is what we wanted to join, and this is a great opportunity for us to learn in a competitive manner, because we have contestants with whom we are competing. We will have to outdo others, and others will also try to outdo others, and in the process, excellence is what we will be able to aim at. So when there is a competition and when there is competitive speaking, it always improves us and pushes us to perform better, which is why I think we must understand that one of the primary purposes of the speech contest is to provide an opportunity to practice competitive speaking. And the second one is to provide interesting educational programs for members and the public. When there is a competition and when there are excellent speeches being delivered by the contestants, all the audience, all the members, whether they are Toastmasters or the public who has come to attend the contest, will be able to gain a tremendous amount of knowledge, will also find it interesting. So providing interesting educational programs for members and the public is another of the purpose of the speech contest. And the third purpose is to provide an opportunity to learn by observing proficient speakers. I'm sure many of you in the audience may have seen people on stage who have performed very well and then were motivated to perform well yourself, which means you will be able to learn by observing proficient speakers. When there are proficient speakers who are speaking from stage, there are a lot of things that we as individuals can learn from them. The way they are using English as a language, or the way they are using the stage to move around, or the way they are using to rouse the emotions of the audience, or the way they are using their speeches to connect with us and pass on a very important message to us. And from that, we can learn and we can become better speakers. So obviously, without the speech contest and without this competitive spirit and without this kind of a learning, it will not be possible for us as Toastmasters to grow, which is why contests are very important, and which is why judging the contest becomes important. So here we come to the point of how we need to judge these contests properly, because I'm sure many of you know one of the values of the Toastmasters International. We know the mission of the Toastmasters International, but we know one of the values is integrity. Integrity is a very powerful word, and I believe all of us as judges should practice or give enough attention to the integrity of judging. And I believe that most of you who are attending this webinar, listening to me from various parts of the Arabian countries or wherever you are from, would understand the importance of having a judging process, which at the end of it, people will think that it was very good contest, and that the people who have been given the first, second, and third places have been given the correct way passes. So that's why I feel that it is important for us to know that judging becomes important, because we will be able to fulfill the purpose of these speech contests. The purpose of the speech contest, of a good competition, can only happen when the judging is good. I'm sure you will agree that if the judging is not good, then the entire competition becomes a sham. Nobody likes the competition because they believe that the judging seems to be wrong. People are not getting credited for their good work. Therefore, if the judges are not having the integrity to rate the best contestant as the best, and the second best contest as the second best, then it will seem like a proper contest. But if we do not do it in that way, people will go disappointed, and people will go away without any faith in the judging, or without any faith in the contest itself. But we all know that in the Toastmasters, these speech contests have tremendous value, because they are the ones which push us to our limits. They are the ones which try to make us good and strong and help us to move forward, which is why I wanted to stress that these are the purposes of the speech contest, and every judge must consider this value of integrity and uphold these purposes, so that everybody who attends a speech contest can go back thinking that the judging was good. But we all know that there are a lot of reasons why people will complain. I'll come to the complaints after I finish this slide about the judges having an obligation. Now, what is it that you as a judge, if you're already a judge, or if you're going to become a judge for the new time, the first time, this is what I think it is important for us to understand. What is it that the judges have an obligation to? Firstly, I think if you are a judge, you have an obligation to the contestants. Please remember that the contestants have come prepared tremendously over the weeks and months sometimes in order to participate in the contest. They write their speech, they rewrite their speech, they sometimes talk with friends, then they change the speech again, they deliver in front of their family members, maybe in front of their friends. But what happens is that this contestant has worked hard, and we as judges have an obligation to these contestants and to give them proper judging, because they have taken time and effort to participate in the contest, and we must uplift that, and we must uphold it by comparing them properly with other people. If we take it carelessly, that means we are not giving a reasonable amount of attention to these contestants and their hard work. So we have, number one, an obligation to the contestants. And number two, we have an obligation to the Toastmasters International. When we have joined the Toastmasters Club, I'm sure we all made a promise. And that promise, among the promises, is that we want to be faithful in whatever we are doing and loyal to whatever tasks we are assigned to. We will prepare fully for each assignment, is what we say. Even a judging assignment. If you are a judge, you must be prepared fully for a judging assignment. That's the kind of obligation we owe to Toastmasters International. We must read the speech contest rule book. Maybe we have to read about different problems of judges. We must attend these kind of judging workshops, and then only we will be able to learn how to become good judges. So that's why we have an obligation to the Toastmasters International, so that we can uphold the spirit of Toastmasters by doing proper judging. Thirdly, we have an obligation to the audience. I'm sure many of you in the audience who are listening to me must have been in an audience where there are a lot of speeches that were given, and the audience went back disappointed because they believe that somebody has got the first place, or somebody should have got the first place, but instead of that person, somebody else has got the first place. When the audience feels cheated, that means maybe something is wrong somewhere. But that does not mean our objective is to satisfy the audience, because many speeches have clear judging criteria, and the judges' ballots that the judges actually write on or mark are according to the Toastmasters International standards. It is the Toastmasters International which has prepared judging ballots, whether it is for topics or evaluation contests, or whether it is for humorous speech contests, or even for international speech contests or tall tale contests. So these are done by the Toastmasters, and these are the things that every judge must follow. But by following that, he may sometimes not be agreeing with the audience completely, and sometimes he may be agreeing. But what is important for us to know is that if you have a good contest and if the judging is good, then the audience will not go disappointed. So we as judges have an obligation to the audience and also to themselves, which means as judges we have an obligation to ourselves, because we must know whether we are judging it properly and whether we are judging it in the right way according to the ballot that has been given to us, because we have an obligation to ourselves as judges. So friends, let us go to next point here, where we discuss what is the difference between judging and evaluating. Can anybody type out for me what you think your difference is? Maybe if you raise your hand, I can unmute you so that you can speak and others can probably hear. Let me see if that is possible. I think I have about 19 attendees here. So if any of you wishes to raise a hand, maybe we can unmute you and the others can hear you. The question that I asked you is, what is the difference between these two words, judging and evaluating? If anybody wishes to raise their hand, you have to click that button on the top right hand, if against your name. On the top is a raised hand. So if you raise your hand, I'll see who it is, and then maybe we can unmute you so that the others can also hear your question. I think Christy has got a question. Maybe we can hear what Christy says. Christy Kulathuran. We will just unmute you so that we can hear your question. Okay, Christy, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. In the evaluation, we are appraising one person's speech. What are the good points, how we managed through the whole speech session, and how he concluded. But in a judging, you are selecting the best speaker among all the, there may be many speakers, you may be selecting the best speaker. So it's an evaluation, but from the evaluation, you choose who is the best. This is my conclusion on the judging versus evaluating.
Okay, you are saying that, thank you, Christy. First of all, very valuable answer and very good, very clearly explained. So you are saying that in the case of evaluation, only evaluating the person on the speech, whereas in the case of judging, you are comparing it with others and deciding one as the best, which is right. But anybody else wants to add to this? Because before I give my final, I think Anandata, maybe you can tell us. I will unmute you and maybe you can speak. I think you have muted it yourself. Now you can try. I think it's not working. There are two attendees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Now I can hear. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. This is Murli Manohar. I agree with what DTM Christie said. In judgment, you decide who is the best and is the winner. In evaluation, you only see what is good, or you can give him suggestions. Here, there is no suggestions. It is just straight hit out or get out. So you have to see who is the best among the contestants.
Okay. Hit out or get out, I like that. But I'm sure, Christy, you have understood Toastmaster Christy. Toastmaster Murli Manohar was saying that the difference between these two is also that we don't give suggestions in the case of judging.
See, if you notice, unlike in the evaluation, we are giving suggestions on how they can improve. Whereas in the case of judging, we are not giving them any suggestions. We are judging them on what they have done. Okay. So I think I will stop.
We have one more.
One more question. I think we will see who is the one who's asking the question.
Yeah, I think it is Kushi. Kushi. Yeah, she's asking whether judging is about present performance and evaluating is about improving your future performance.
Excellent. I think Kushi has got it right. And we got you.
Thank you to Kushi. It is absolutely right. Judging is about the present performance, where evaluation is all about improving your performance so that in future you can do better. So you're all right. Thank you very much for joining and giving us these points. We will come back to you in a little while. But let me show you on the slide, when we talk of judging versus evaluating, you'll see here that judging is all about selecting a winner, whereas evaluating is giving an appraisal and advice on how the speeches can be made better. So definitely there is a lot of difference between these two. And as Toastmaster Murli was mentioning, in the case of judging, we are only selecting a winner and we're not really giving advice to them. The advice can be from anybody elsewhere, but not the judges. Judges are not evaluating. Judges are deciding the winner. So please remember, as participants in the judges, your job is not evaluating. Your job is just deciding who is the winner. I must tell you that I have had an occasion where I was a contestant and one of the judges came and gave me a whole big lecture on how I should have spoken, which is okay. I mean, as an individual, he can do it, but it would have been better if he didn't do it also, because, according to the Toastmasters rule, I should not even know who the judge is. But why did he come and reveal himself to me? So I think we have to be careful, because Toastmasters International suggests that as much as possible, or as far as possible, we have to try to see that the judges are anonymous, which of course is not always practical, but as much as possible, judges should avoid giving any evaluation. Evaluation is in the club when a speech is given and you evaluate him. But judges' role is purely to select a winner. That's what we need to remember. And that's why if you see the line that I have put up on the screen here, judges' decisions are confidential. Here I must mention a time when I think it was in Kuwait or somewhere when I was a participant in a district contest. One judge came to me and told me, Joel, you will get the first place. And I was shocked. He said, no, I put full marks for you, so you will get the first place. But I think this was wrong, and it upset me. Firstly, because I shouldn't have known the judge, and he has unnecessarily come and told me that I will come first. And secondly, I was upset because I didn't come first, and neither did I come third. I didn't even get second. So you can understand. But first of all, we must remember that this kind of judges talking to contestants is also not acceptable. Judges' decisions are confidential, means confidential. You are not even sharing the judges' information with other judges also. In fact, normally, we recommend that the judges tear off their sheets of paper with all those marks that they have put, because your job at the end of a contest, after you give your judging, is to write only 3 names. Who is the first place winner according to you? Who is the second place winner? And who is the third place winner according to you? Why I am saying according to you is because you can never be sure whether all the other judges will feel exactly like you. Because judging is all about subjective people trying to make an objective decision. Please remember this line: subjective people, trying to make an objective decision. Because when more the judges, we hope that the objectivity in the exercise will become better. So let's remember that judges' decisions are confidential, and you should not be discussing anything with that. Now let's look at who the good judges are. On the screen, you see who the good judges are. Firstly, good judges are accurate, which means you have a ballot sheet you have the points on which you are judging. So you must use that accurately. Sometimes you will put marks for content, delivery, gestures. You have a different kinds of ballot aspects that you are judging. Excuse me. And in that process, if you make a mistake in the calculation or in your totaling, you could actually completely jeopardize the chances of a contestant from going on next level. So we have to be careful. If you are marking the judges, if you are marking the contestant's performance on a judge's ballot, make sure you calculate the totals thoroughly. So good judges are accurate. Number two, good judges are fair. Now, what do I mean by fair? They are not biased. They are not partial towards things, towards the speech aspects, towards individuals from where they are. Anyway, I'll come to this a little more in the next slide when I talk to you about the various mistakes that most of us as judges do. So I can keep that as a exciting thing for you to look forward to in the next slide, where we'll discuss the mistakes that judges normally make. But good judges are accurate, good judges are fair, and good judges are trustworthy. They do not share everything with others. You cannot, please note this, my dear audience here who are attending this webinar. Trustworthy means the district or the area or the club or even the division has entrusted you with the job of judging, and they are believing that you will do it with integrity and you will do it in the correct way possible. Now, you cannot go after the judging to some contestant and tell him, I don't know why you came third. I gave you the first place. I don't know what the other judges have done. This is completely ridiculous because you as a judge are making a comment on the other judges. And even you are not supposed to go and speak to any other judges about what has happened, because you have to be trustworthy and be careful with what you have been given. And you must be knowledgeable also. Sometimes if you're knowledgeable about the rules of the contest, if you know what are accepted and what are not accepted. For example, in the international speech contest, we are told that the speech should be substantially original. And what is the meaning of substantially original? Which means the majority of the speech, that means more than 50, 60, 70, 50% of the speech, 60% of the speech has to be original. But if you are knowledgeable, you will quickly know that the contestant is speaking half the time on things that have been plagiarized, or probably things that have been taken from other speeches or some other places. So if you are knowledgeable, you'll be able to know that. So good judges are also knowledgeable. And good judges are good listeners. When there are so many speeches, we must accept that we are all humans, and fatigue can take a toll on us. So sometimes we may not be able to always pay attention, but our job is to try and be as careful as possible and as keen on listening, because only when you listen attentively without letting your mind wander away to things that can distract you, because sometimes even in the contest area, something might happen on the sidelines while the speech is going on, which might distract you. But you as a judge must be a good listener. Forget about the distraction, because you have a task to do. You have an assignment to fulfill, which is to judge the speech and the way it is delivered. So don't let other things be distracted to you, or distract you. So you must be good listeners too. Now let's come to what I just said, that we have to look at objectivity. If you remember, I mentioned that as judges, we are trying to come out with an objective decision, which means where most of us will agree that this person is the best, this person is the second best, and this person is the third best. But agreeing on this is not easy. We are all subjective people, because we all have our own upbringing, our own baggage of different perceptions, cultures. So we may not be able to think in the same way. But that should be our objective. Our whole point of this exercise is that all of us with our subjective minds are trying to come out with an objective answer. But what are the barriers to objectivity? This is what I thought we should discuss. first one that you see on your screen is speaker position. Does anybody know what I'm talking about here when I say speaker position? Maybe you can raise your hand if you feel you can tell me about it. What do you mean by speaker position? And how it can be an objective, it can be a barrier to objectivity. Anybody wish to tell me what do you feel that this means when we say speaker position? And the second one also I will show you before we go to the next point here. The champion for the underdog. What is the second one? And what is the third one, the halo effect? Any of these three, if you would like to share something on this, raise your hand and I will let you speak and give us what you feel about these things. So these are the three barriers to objectivity. One is speaker's position, and the second is champion for the underdog, and the third is the halo effect. I think Toastmaster Christy has raised his hand. What do you wish to say, Toastmaster Christy?
The halo effect is the judges thinking, oh, last year also he attempted, he was good, but he couldn't win, so I'll give him a chance.
Okay.
That is a halo effect. And speaker position, I believe what you meant is where he stand on a stage and deliver the speech. He should not start from the corner or backside of the stage, the positioning, how to deliver. Champion for the underdog, the judges believe, he may not be good, but the judges think, oh, we should give him a chance. This is my perception of three.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I think you gave us your thoughts, but is there anybody else who has a difference of opinion with Toastmaster Christy, or something that they would like to add to what Toastmaster Christy has mentioned about these three barriers that we are talking about?
Toastmaster Kushi. He says that speaker's position, sometimes we give low points to the first speaker, so we have room to give higher points to the later speakers.
That's an interesting observation, Toastmaster Kushi. Because you're saying that sometimes we give low points to the first speaker, so we have room to give high points for the later speakers. Good thinking. I'm not saying it is the right thing to do, but I think you got the answer in a way close to what I wanted to say. But let me explain. Toastmaster Christy, thank you for your points also. But let me explain that speaker position here in this particular context is also talking about the number at which he comes. Do you think we pay a lot more attention to the person who speaks first and last rather than the people who speak in the middle sometimes? So sometimes the speaker's position can also affect your judging scores. So that's why what we mean is you have to be fair and objective in your decisions on how the people have performed all through from the first to the last. Don't let the speaker's position. And as Toastmaster Kushi also pointed, sometimes you'll be just putting some marks to form as a grading. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? By giving some points which are low in the beginning and high points at the end. But here, let me answer it myself. The problem would be that if you give low marks in the beginning and you are comparing everybody else to that particular person, which may not be an ideal thing to do. Because what is happening is now you have heard or seen the first speaker, and now you are rating every other speaker against that speaker, which also may be a reasonable good thing, provided the first speaker has given you clear idea as to how you are going to judge the rest of them. Because please remember, as judges, your job is to find out based on the criteria who is best, who is the second best, and who is the third best. In fact, the chief judge does not even want your scores. The chief judge wants you to clearly follow the guidelines, give your scores, because that is why it also says on the ballot itself, it's a guide. It's a Toastmasters guide to a ballot. So the numbering is to help you rate the person, which is a very good thing to do, but don't fall into the trap of letting the speaker position affect our rating of the others. And as Toastmaster Christy was pointing out, champion for the underdog, this kind of a judge, he wants to be the champion for the underdog. He believes that this particular contest should have got a chance last year, but he did not get, so let me give it this year. Because that particular contestant is viewed as an underdog, and the judge feels that he wants to help him, which is also not a good thing to do, which is a barrier to the objectivity. Halo effect is, of course, you know, the halo around the head. Sometimes when a person has done something very good, maybe the aura is so good that you try to give him a lot of good points because of his other work. Like, for example, let's say that there is a very good person in your club. His personality is very good. He talks to you very nicely. His language is good. His communication is good. But on the speech, maybe this will cloud your thinking, because he is a good person. You will give him good scores, not because of the speech, but because you like him as a person. The halo effect of his good personality is affecting your decision of whether the speech was good. Please remember, he may be a very good person, but your objective here is to know whether he was a good speaker and this particular speech was good or bad. So don't let the halo effect affect you. And the next thing is the effect called the reverse halo effect. Sometimes people call it the horn effect instead of the halo effect. You see those two emoticons or emoji, one with a halo on the head and one with horns on the head, the opposites. Now, in the case of halo effect, it's also the bad thing. Like, for example, there is a contestant who came and is standing on the stage. For some reason, you didn't like him as an area governor or area director last year, so you will rate him low. That is the horn effect, because maybe you are now not judging him actually on the speech, but on his previous bad performances or on his previous bad attitude or personality, which should not come in the way of this one. Because here you are judging the speech, and you must only judge the speech, not his other things which have a bad side to it. That's what we mean by the reverse halo effect. Second time around. Anybody knows what second time around means? Oh, I'm sorry, I just went up a little. Second time around. Now, this is a very serious problem, I feel, that many of us in many Toastmasters clubs are facing. Here, when you say second time around, what happens is that judges sometimes are chosen to judge in the area contest, and the same judges go to the division contest. And if the same judges are hearing the same speech again, they are listening to the speech second time around, and maybe they will not pay the same amount of attention to it, and maybe that will affect them. So please make sure that you do not fall into this trap too, the second time around, which could be a barrier to our objectivity. And not the norm. This is the other thing. Not the norm is where the judge does not approve of some kind of a cultural thing that that particular contestant is doing, maybe standing on the stage in a certain manner, which this particular person believes, or this judge believes, is not the norm, is not the rule, because he may have come from a different district, he may have not seen how it is, and that could also affect his decision. And lastly, prejudices and personal preferences. We all have our personal preferences, and sometimes these can affect us too. So let's remember that we should try to avoid all these barriers to objectivity. But the best way to do this, of course, is that if you're a judge, you must know the rules. And if you know the rules, you will prevent misconceptions. You will not go into wrong things. So please, I strongly suggest to everybody who's a judge to download the freely available speech contest rule book. Download this and go through it, because one of the beautiful things about Toastmasters is that everything is outlined, everything is given by the Toastmasters International. In fact, we are living in amazing times where we can download the digital files at the click of a button. I know, since I have been in the Toastmasters for 17 years plus, I know how people before me have struggled to even get material from the Toastmasters International. But here you can get all the rules and anything that changed very quickly. So you also saw the judges ballot. We are not going to be going into that, but please remember, in the judges guide, you can take notes, use the suggested points that they give on the ballot, and use other point values. Like if they say for content between 5 to 10 points, then you have to take that as the rating. So use those pluses, minuses, and all that, and make sure that, for instance, if you see here, there is content, delivery, and language on which you have to judge in some contests. And on the development itself, you will see speech contest, speech development. There are different points as given there. So as a judge, you have to go through this in a careful manner, including points like delivery, what is physical, what is voice, manner, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points. So these are all guides which are given to you. So please follow that. And when you follow all these things, you will be able to be a good judge and hopefully contribute wonderfully well for the Toastmasters International. Now, if you want to have any questions, you are free to ask me. You can raise your hand, and then I can allow you to speak, and then we can use this time effectively. Before I hand over to Toastmaster Madhavi, who will be speaking to us about the chief judging. But any questions on the judging, I think we can now use this time. Please raise your hand, and I will allow you to speak, and we will be able to try to answer as much as possible. I see Toastmaster Christy. Well, please go ahead, and I think we will just see that it. Yeah, Toastmaster.
My question is, when the first speaker spoke,
Yeah.
we already put the mark sheet, we scored him. And when the subsequent speaker spoke, we felt this mark we put is not fair and, you know, should be revised. So how we manage that?
Now, tell me something. If you want to revise the previous mark, is there anything wrong?
It's not that. See, I can, if the subsequent speakers are less of quality, I could score them lower. That is one way I can manage it. You know, sometimes, you know, you put marks, you may put a better score for them on the process when there are several speakers. So how to adjust that? If you give us some clue how to manage the situation.
Okay, I think this is a very valid question that you're asking. First of all, let me tell you that's a very good question, and I'm sure many people who have been judges will understand your situation. I've been a judge, and I know this kind of situation where you feel, oh, I must probably revise that one before. You know, because when I look at this person and that person, I think this has to be changed. But now this is purely up to you, because you are the judge, and you are trying to judge between, let us say, 6 contestants on some aspect. And you can look at the 6 contestants, you can revise as many times as you want before you submit your final ballot of who are your top 3 to the tally counters or the people who have to take your ballot sheet. So it's absolutely up to you. So nobody stops you from that. So you have given some, but you should not think that just because you've given a score in the beginning, it should be sealed in stone. But you must understand that if you keep doing it, you'll have to do it for everybody then. And you may not be able to effectively do it if you're doing it. But once you keep judging a few contests, you'll automatically understand if you have to revise a little, no problem, revise it. Ultimately, the chief judge is not asking you for your mark sheet. Please remember, your job as judges is to decide the winners, who is the best based on the criteria or the guide that the Toastmasters International has given you in the form of the Toastmasters guide and ballot. So using that as the main criteria, you are judging who is first, second, and third. So there is one suggestion. You have to fold over the ballot so you don't see that you have. Yeah, this is a very good suggestion. Yes, thank you, Toastmaster Gary. This is what many people do, and I have done it also. Each one you can fold so that you don't see the previous one's marks. That will help you so that you don't get seriously affected by it. But you know, the Toastmasters ballot was not really made for folding. But if you feel like that, you can do it. It's up to you. And if you don't feel like that, that's also fine. But you as a judge are free to make your judgment in the way that you can do well. Toastmasters is trusting you to be a good judge, and we believe you that you can do that using this method. Toastmaster Gary, thank you. Folding over the ballot to don't see the previous scores is also a very good suggestion. And anybody else? I think
can I speak?
Yeah, Toastmaster Christy wants to speak. Okay, please go ahead, Toastmaster.
with regard to the folding the ballots, what I do, I write the first contestant on the rightmost side and
Okay.
subsequently to the left. So when
Yeah.
I write the mark, I fold the rightmost. It's difficult to fold the left in the middle. So
Correct.
I
Because
fold
you
the
need
right.
to see the criteria. You need to see the criteria. Correct.
Exactly, yeah. So I
Yeah.
fold the right contestant in the rightmost, first contestant from the rightmost and fold it. That is what I do.
I'm sure Toastmaster Gary also must have meant the same thing, that you write from
Yes,
the right side and go towards the left side
yes,
and
yes,
folding it
yes.
so that you don't see the ones there. Yeah, thank you. I think
Exactly.
that's a good
Thank you.
approach. Yeah.
Thank you.
You have to fold out the ballot so that you don't see what you've scored for the previous one. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Toastmaster Gary. Yes, yes, fold
Thank you.
it under and so that it can be done. I think thank you very much, dear friends, for joining us on this webinar. And it is still continuing. I'm not ending it. I'm only ending as the judges training workshop. And we have a veteran chief judge who will be giving soon. But I'll hand it over back to the moderator, Toastmaster DTM Roslyn, who will go on to the next item on the agenda.
So thank you very
Thank you
much
very
for
much.
joining, and it's over to the moderator.
Thank you, DTM Joel. That was indeed a very good, what to say, a very depth knowledge about judging, and it was eye-opener for many of us. Now we are very, very much confident to take up the judging assignments. Your experience speak of what you were presenting us now. Thank you so much, DTM Joel. Now, to present the chief judging workshop for us, we have a beautiful, elegant lady. She's sitting right in front of me, smiling. She is a Toastmaster Madhavi Tiwari, and she's been a Toastmaster since 1997. She has presented dozens of educational workshops on chief judging, evaluation, creative writing, and on English language skills, right from the club level to the district level. She has the distinction of having been chief judge for about 75 times in all levels of contests. That speaks her experience. Besides leading many impactful educational workshops, she has also chaired DTAC 2008, DTAC 2007, DTAC 2017, and District 79 as Education Committee Head. What more, she also has co-authored 8 books published in UK, writes newspaper editorials, poems, and performs in annual international poetry festivals. She has trained bankers, other professionals in leadership and management skills for more than 7 years. She currently works at the University of Bahrain. So we have with us the right lady to conduct this session of chief judging. So let's welcome Toastmaster Madhavi Tiwari to go ahead with her presentation. Toastmaster Madhavi Tiwari.
Thank you, DTM Rosalind. Toastmasters of District 20, a very cool afternoon to you. I'm Madhavi Tiwari from Bahrain, and I'm really, really happy to be talking to you. However, I'm a little jittery entering this slightly misunderstood and confusing zone called the Toastmasters, called the Chief Judging Zone. However, um, I have an understanding that lots of us think that chief judge is a huge cosmetic um, on the face of a contest. Chief judge who pompously stands in a corner and giving a thumbs up to start the contest. My job this evening is to explode this myth. And that's why, can you see the screen? I think I'll have to take a 30-second break to put the screen. Thank you for being patient. I'm just taking a few more seconds of break.
We will be having the question and answer session after Madhavi's presentation.
Okay, apparently I've been helped by a great helping gentleman, DTM Mohammed Salim. Thank you, DTM Mohammed Salim, for putting on the screen for me. So as you can see, my job this afternoon is to claim that chief judging is not a piece of cosmetic, it's an art, it's a skill, and it's a force behind the success of a contest. But before I dive any deeper, I would like to first express my gratitude to DTM Matthews P. Kurian, as you can see on the screen, who about 20 years back inspired me to understand and believe that chief judging is a very crucial role for any contest. And just to give you a little confidence, allow me to let you know that all the information that I have has come from the most authentic source, which is Toastmasters International Speech Contest Rulebook. My personal correspondence over the years with the Toastmasters authorities and the frequently asked questions on the Toastmasters International website. So it gives some credibility to what I'm going to talk about today. I have just 4 items on the agenda for this afternoon. Brainstorming on one item, and then we will go through 3 short case studies, which are true case studies, and which will really give us a lot of insight into chief judging. And then I will talk about various relevant aspects. And lastly, you may ask questions. If I have the answer, I may give you the answers as well. So organizers are suggesting that we have the question answer session at the end. So first of all, I give you 10 seconds to run and bring a piece of paper and pen if you don't have any, and keep writing your questions so that we can discuss them at the end. However, if you have a very pressing question, do raise your hand and we can discuss it on the spot. So your 10 seconds to run and fetch your pencil and piece of paper. Start now. All right. So please storm your brains and raise your hand if you have the answer to this question. What do you think are the specially required? Of course, a chief judge and any role performer should have a lot of qualities, but I'm asking you to tell me what are the specially required qualities of a chief judge. So do raise your hand if you have some answer, and I request the moderator, DTM Rosalind, to let me know. Okay.
Good
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Toastmaster Madhavi. This is
Very
Toastmaster Madhavi. I think the specially required quality of the chief judge is to be knowledgeable, especially of the rules in the rule book.
Okay. I missed your first few words, so could you please repeat them?
I was just introducing myself. My name is Toastmaster Maram Al-Aradi.
Toastmaster Maram. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please tell me.
Yeah, so I was saying that the specially required quality of the chief judge is basically knowledge of what are the rules to be followed, especially in terms of the special cases that might not occur usually, but the chief judge still has to have the knowledge about them in case they happened.
I love this answer. I think it's a little sort of a lack of knowledge that most of us believe that chief judging is not effective at our contests. So I think you have really hit the nail.
Well, there is, hi Toastmaster Madhavi. I think
Hi.
I'm muted. This is Toastmaster Khalid. Another feature or another thing that a chief judge would need is wisdom. Knowledge is one thing, but applying it in the right time is another thing. So the chief judge would need to be wise in deciding upon things that is happening during the contest. Back to you.
Absolutely lovely. Absolutely lovely. Well said. So before, so not to keep you in suspense any longer, let me point out what I personally feel, which of course, obviously includes what you people have said. So, Toastmaster Maram, you said knowledgeable, and I believe that's so. Knowledge is extremely important because there are a whole lot of things which a chief judge should know. Otherwise, it may affect any contest negatively. As you said, wisdom, I think you put it in a better manner. May I request DTM Salim to do something to the background noise? I can hear a lot of background noise. Thank you. Yeah, you used the word wisdom. Absolutely, wisdom is necessary, but so is courage. You will see that a chief judge in different situations needs a lot of courage to implement wisely the knowledge that he or she has. And then communicative. A chief judge really needs to be very, very communicative. If the knowledge is stored and locked inside the mind of the chief judge, a lot of things may not happen because chief judge needs to coordinate with a lot of different types of people, the judges, the tally counters, the timers, the contest chair. And if communication is not clear and timely, a lot of knowledge may not help. So, to me, these are the very, very special qualities that a chief judge must have. However, we shouldn't forget that integrity is very, very essential for any role, and so it is for a chief judge's role. Now we'll go to our case studies. Take a few seconds to read this particular case. And if you're ready to choose an option that I have, out of the three options that I have given, please raise your hand. Okay, we already have Toastmaster Anandita. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing your name correctly or not. So, Madam Moderator, can we have the answer, please? Can you speak, Toastmaster Anandita? You are unmuted. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, now I
The
can hear you.
chief judge, the chief judge does not do anything unless he gets any complaint from the contestants or the contestant report it to the contest chair.
Absolutely. As the case study says that it was identified as such and a protest was made. So
Protest was made. So it has to, the chief judge has to decide after discussing with the contestant and the protester with the proof. And when he has to call for the contestant and tell him and get his verification done, then chief judge decides the decision, makes the decision.
absolutely, you're so very much right, Toastmaster Anandita. So my question was, who could have changed the above undesirable scenario? Obviously, the chief judge. Unfortunately, in this two-case study, the chief judge did not do anything, and that might be lack of knowledge or lack of courage, whatever it was. But chief judge could have and should have done that. So I was just trying to show and emphasize that even in two scenarios, a chief judge can really make a lot of difference. Now we'll move to
Toastmaster
our,
Gary. Toastmaster Gary.
Okay, let me check. Toastmaster Gary. All right. Toastmaster Gary? Yeah,
You can
were saying
speak.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Toastmaster Gary?
Toastmaster Gary.
All right, we'll move to our second case study. And yeah, take a few seconds to read it. And when you are ready with your yes or no, you can raise your hand, please. Okay. I think Toastmaster Gary again wants to answer. I can't hear him. All right. Is there anybody else who's ready? We can try probably. Anyways, so this is a division annual contest. Two judges from the same club presented an unmistakably biased judgment. This judgment affected the entire results of the concerned contest. There was an all-round agitation about the results. However, the results were accepted. Now, my question was, could the results be changed in the above undesirable scenario? Unfortunately, the answer is no, because Toastmasters International is very, very firm about judges' decision being the final, and no protest can be made in this scenario. However, even though the results of that particular contest would not be changed, the chief judge had the responsibility to make a mental note and for future use. And these kind of judges, if they are so obviously biased, those kind of judges either need to be counseled or not used as judges in the future. So at least something can be done about it for future use, and we should not really forget the incident and accept it as if we can't do anything. So it is the responsibility of the chief judge. I'll talk about this particular scenario a little later in a little more detail. Let's go to the third case study. Take a few seconds and read it, please. If anyone is ready, you can raise your hand. I've given you three options. Okay, Toastmaster Khalid has an answer. Toastmaster
The
Khalid?
chief judge should make the decision, not anyone else.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. The chief judge only should make a decision, right?
Yes.
Lovely. So from these three case studies, you might have understood that the role of the chief judge is extremely crucial in a variety of ways. That's why I had chosen these case studies, and they were all true. Now let's move to the qualifications to be a chief judge. I will not really go into detail about it. They are available in the speech rule book and very easy to understand. So, however, I will like you to pay special attention to the recommendations. The above are the first 3 points are the rules. However, the recommendation is very important to understand and appreciate. And the recommendation is that a chief judge should have attended a judging workshop and a chief judging workshop. And from where does this recommendation come? It comes from the Toastmasters International. I came across it in one of the frequently asked questions. And it comes from the best traditions in our region. I don't know about other regions. I'm sure they're following the same because this is one of the best practices. However, in our region, We do conduct regular judging and chief judging workshops, and it's highly recommended that anybody who wants to become a conscientious and competent chief judge should have attended both. Now let's go to the third item on the agenda, which is some of the aspects of chief judging. So let's talk about the duties of a chief judge. Now you see this icon of a running matchstick man because I have prepared a manual, and these just indicate that all these things are mentioned in that manual. I'm going to request the organizers later to upload the manual, and whoever is interested can download it. So this only indicates that you can really go to certain pages of the manual and find all the information and more that I'm talking about. Please include it in your beliefs that a chief judge is in total control of the contest. And a chief judge needs to be very, very firm not to let anyone interfere with what you know to be correct. Now here there are two things. One is that your knowledge should be accurate and from the authentic sources. And once you are sure that what you know is correct, then let nobody interfere. But of course, we need to be a little diplomatic. We don't need to shout and bang the tables. We need to do things very, very quietly and tactfully. I'll give you one example. There are lots of times when organizers of events and contests are very pressed for time and pressed by other things, and they make requests which interfere with the judging and chief judging process. Now, lots of us buckle under pressure and we make compromises. But my very strong suggestion is that we should not. I can give you just one small example. Now, for example, they will ask you to have the judge's briefing only for 5 minutes because they don't have time. I have come across it many, many times. I do understand their time constraints, but judge's briefing is a very, very important aspect of chief judging. It makes a lot of difference to the judging. And I personally never make a compromise on it. And I require and I request firmly that certain amount of time, which can be 20 minutes or 25 minutes at least, is given. So lots of such scenarios might happen, but a chief judge needs to be really, really firm. So kindness here is not really required. Now, what should a chief judge do, when and what? A few things are to be done before the contest. For example, selecting judges. Now, if you notice on the screen, it says qualified. Of course, qualifications are very clearly stated in the speech rule book. But other than qualifications, there are two other characteristics which your judges on the panel should have, and that is they are fair and competent, both. So we were talking about the biased judgment a little while back, and competence. Now, competence is also very important. Even when judges are very, very fair, sometimes they don't really appreciate all the divisions and sections of the judging criteria. Now that really comes in the way of selecting a very deserving winner. But how as chief judge would we know that our judges are fair and competent? It is a slightly tricky situation because we know a lot of people and we don't know a lot of people. So I can only share with you what I personally do when I'm the chief judge. I select approximately 70% of the judges on the panel who I believe from and who I trust from past experience of working with them. And I know that they are fair and they really judge very, very conscientiously, and they understand the whole set of judging criteria. However, for different reasons, mainly because new Toastmasters should also be coming into the judging arena. Then I also include about 30 to 35% of new Toastmasters. And I take pains to brief them very, very carefully and in detail and put my trust in them. And then after judging each contest, I study the ballots just to understand how their judging process was. And I do have a personal list where I keep including new Toastmasters and old Toastmasters remain there. And thus my list keeps increasing all the time. So I'm sure from experience that I do have a set of lots of fair and competent judges who I can choose from. Now, contacting judges and confirming their commitment. It sounds like something very, very obvious. However, when there is a big event, a big contest where lots of people are involved, sometimes organizers offer to contact the judges and they just tell the chief judges that, okay, we have got their confirmation, etc. However, I always make it a point to contact the judges myself and confirm their commitment. Now, this is for a specific reason. If I don't do it myself, I don't have 100% confidence that they will be present at the briefing time, etc. And if that doesn't happen, some judges go missing, then we have to end up choosing judges randomly and at the last minute, which is really not a good idea at all. Now, contact and clarify with the contest chairperson. I'm sure many of you might wonder, why should a chief judge contact a contest chairperson? Because a contest chairperson is a big authority by himself or herself, and he or she is supposed to know everything. But in reality, it doesn't happen often, because sometimes contest chairs are rather new, inexperienced Toastmasters who don't know all the procedures. Sometimes they are not sure, for example, who should be giving the topic for the table topics contest, or sometimes they don't know the exact procedure that whether they should collect the contestant's eligibility form or the chief judge should collect. However, chief judge can make sure with the contest chairperson that he is or she is knowledgeable about everything. That should take care of the accuracy of the procedure. Then, of course, a chief judge has to prepare a lot of forms. Normally at big events, organizers offers to prepare the forms and folders, which is very, very nice and is appreciated. But I personally advise carry at least a set of your own, just in case the folders are wrong. I did end up getting some wrong folders at some events, but fortunately I was carrying my own, so nothing untoward happened. Now, what does a chief judge do just before the contest? Ensure the availability and functionality of all relevant equipment and seating. Yes, it is indeed the chief judge's responsibility to see that the timing devices are working and the seating is appropriate enough, and timing devices the lights are not visible to the audience as much as possible, and they are very appropriately visible to the contestants. Now, the last bullet point on this slide that you can see is a very crucial thing, and many times it's sadly ignored. Conduct the briefing for all the judges, tally counters, and timers in an appropriately prepared room. Now, this is one aspect where chief judges are pressurized to make a compromise. I have seen contests happening where the briefing is happening in one corner of the hall, everybody is standing and surrounded by a crowd, and the briefing is happening. This is not done at all. uh, an appropriate place is extremely important for the briefing. So we have to insist that we need a separate briefing room for the judges. Now, once we have the judges briefing, if the chief judge has a very clear agenda, that's very, very helpful. So what I'm going to show you, the agenda that I use at all my judges briefing, you can have a look and see how it might help. So there are certain, these are the items that need to be discussed at a judge's briefing. If you have a question on any of these items, you can note it down and we can deal with it in the question answer session, because the organizers are showing me almost the red light. So now what happens at the contest, really we are not one of those VIPs who should be sitting in the front row. It's so much easier to do our duty when we are standing at the back of the room and on our feet without really intruding on the audience or the contestants. Then it is the chief judge who collects the timer's record sheet and the tie-breaking judge's ballot. All the other judges' ballots are, of course, collected by the tally counters. Now, resolve any protests. This, I think, was touched upon earlier. However, this is a one crucial area where sometimes people are not fully aware. So let me tell you how a chief judge needs to deal with the protest. If it's an originality protest, it's dealt by the contest chair. If it's a eligibility protest, it's dealt by the contest chair. And if it's an originality of the speech protest, it's dealt by the chief judge along with the other judges on the panel. That's why it's extremely important for the chief judge to insist that all judges should remain till the end of the contest. Now, once a protest is there, the process is simple but needs to be followed. The chief judge first calls all the judges and presents the case to the judges. And at the same time, the chief judge requests the involved speaker and gives him an opportunity to explain his or her case. Now, after that, once the speaker has done that and left, then the judges, they have a voting. Judges decide by voting whether the protest is acceptable or not. There is no proof is required because it's highly impractical to be asking for a proof at that particular point of time. So it's the judges together who put their brains together and decide whether the protest should be accepted or not accepted. And once the decision is taken, it is conveyed to the contestant. Now, overseeing the counting process, by default, chief judge is also the chief tally counter. And counting process accuracy is important because tally counters may be experienced, they may be inexperienced. There's a lot of carefulness that is required to enter the correct marks in the correct cells and the correct points for the correct positions given by each judge. So this is how I do it. There are two tally counters, and I request one of the tally counters first to fill in the tally counting sheet according to the ballots, and then I reverse after that is filled in, then the other tally counter double checks it, and I'm overseeing it all the time. Suddenly the organizers are giving me some incentive, so I'm more energized to go on for another 20 minutes. So anyway, so we were talking about the counting process. So it's very, very important because I have seen personally tally counters making a lot of mistakes. And recently, another thing was brought to my notice that one particular chief judge actually asked the tally counters just to give the ballots and go, and all the ballot counting was done by the chief judge alone. That's entirely wrong, and it kind of shocked me. So to sum it up, tally counting is done in the presence of two tally counters, and it is double checked for accuracy, and both the tally counters and the chief judge sign the ballot sheet. Then of course results are given to the contest chair. What do we do after the contest? That DTM Joel has already told you. We destroy all the ballots and related documents. That's the chief judge's responsibility to maintain the confidentiality of all these documents. Now, I would like to go back to that quality of courage. There are so many occasions when things are not going right and chief judges just remain silent, not to make any disturbance to the contest event. Well, that's not correct. If something is really not going right, the chief judge should have the courage to stop the contest. I have done it once, and I'll tell you why. In the middle of an evaluation contest, I noticed that all the contestants in their room outside, they could actually hear their previous contestants. The sound was so loud, the room was so close by, and somebody left the door open. Although I had checked it at the beginning, but I didn't know that the door would be left open. So this was obviously very, very unfair to the previous contestants, that they could be heard by the next evaluators. So I stopped the contest and we had to start again. So if this kind of a serious lag is happening, show your courage. Now, selecting your judges, of course, we can go to the speech rule book anytime and see what are the qualifications, etc. So I would just emphasize once again the bold bullet point, the last one. Use your past experience and interaction to select impartial and competent judges. That is very important. Sometimes we select judges who are always eager to attend. We don't want to spend our time persuading competent judges. Sometimes you select them in a hurry at the last minute. We need to take our job seriously. Then, as I mentioned before, we need to stay in contact with the judges, contest chairperson. These are the contest forms that the chief judge will require to prepare. And these are, of course, all mentioned on the Toastmasters website, so I don't really have to spend a lot of time talking about them. However, coming to the judge's guide and ballot, I think one Toastmaster had suggested that I should clarify about using the ballot. Now, from DTM Matthew's Korean workshop 20 years back, I had learned this, and I thought it was quite useful if judges want to use it. He recommended that the chief judge should make a cut, a horizontal cut at the top of the judging ballot, where just above where the criteria are mentioned. And that cut helps in folding the ballot sheet. That can be easily done if judges find it helpful. Now, pre-contest briefing, please give all your attention to it. Do it as nicely as you can. We need to brief the judges separately from the tally counters, timers, etc. However, it helps if you let the tally counters see your judges, because they have to collect the ballots from them as unobtrusively as possible. However, brief your judges first, and then you can meet the tally counters and timers and brief them a little. Selective briefing and coordination, it helps to brief or at least make sure with the sergeant at arms as well, because especially in contests like evaluation and table topics, sergeant at arms role is very, very important to ensure that things are done right, the coordination between the contestants outside the hall and the sound system inside the hall, that is all controlled by sergeant at arms. So if the chief judge has a word with them, it really helps. I always do. And as I mentioned, with the contest chairperson as well. And the last few things, they might be repetition, but they are important. And you can just have a look at them one by one. If you look at the last point, that's also sometimes overlooked. When the results are being announced, it's very important for the chief judge to remain very, very alert, because contest chairs are excited or nervous or whatever. The crowd pressurizes them and they just might end up announcing the wrong order of results. So a third place winner may be announced as the first place winner of the contest, etc. And there is nobody to correct them, but it's of course, obviously, I don't have to even emphasize it. The chief judge needs to immediately stop and correct that this is the wrong order. That is why some chief judges, they think after preparing the ballots and giving the results to the contest chair, their job is over and they can go and attend their parties. But it's extremely important to remain till the results are announced and check that they are announced correctly. So once again, there might be any number of and any type of emergencies. Chief judges should not overlook them and just let go of them silently. We need to really, really tackle them promptly as well as fairly. And that is why I repeat that chief judging is an art, a skill, and a force behind the success of contest. Thank you very much for listening to me. And if you have any questions, please ask. I just might answer.
Thank you, Toastmaster Madhavi, for that depth into the chief judging. I, as a moderator, have my first question. Can I ask?
Of course.
Okay. You were saying that the chief judge has to stay back till the end of the contest. But because of some other commitments and time constraints, some of the chief judges, they hand over the results to the contest chair and they leave the contest. But if a protest happens after that, before the results are announced, what should be done?
Most definitely, if the chief judge is not conscientious enough, then the organizers must insist that the chief judge remains. The chief judge, along with the judges, remain till the end of the contest, not just before the announcement of the results, but even till the announcement of the results. That's extremely important. Otherwise the whole contest will turn into a farce.
Okay, thank you. Toastmaster Khalid Abdullah has got a question. You can speak, Khalid.
Can you?
Hello. Hi, Toastmaster Madhavi.
Hi, Toastmaster Khalid.
Thank you so much for the lovely, not only to you as well to brother Joel. Yeah, I think both of you did a fantastic job. Just a quick question. For the judging briefing, what we need to basically highlight during the briefing itself. I know that you already listed the sequence of things and I can see that, but there are few tips that we need to highlight to the judges. For example, when it comes to the table topics contest, the judges need to make sure that the question on or the table topic itself has been answered and not just deviated from the answer itself or gone around it. So this is one tip. Is there any other tips that I'm sure through your experience, there are so many other tips I've been through with lots of chief judges, and each chief judge has his own way of explaining the ballot itself. So from your own experience, what are the things has to be highlighted there?
Okay, I'll share with you what happens in our judges room. What happens is when we are discussing the judging criteria, not just the criteria on the front of the ballot, but at the back, the details of the criteria are given. At that time, you probably might find it surprising that the judges and the chief judge, all of them, we discuss our experiences in regard to any specific criterion, and we share our experiences, and then as a group, as a team, we decide how we are going to tackle that particular criterion. I'll give you an example of, for example, disqualifications are only two: originality and eligibility, right? However, there are rules, and we cannot disqualify a contestant because he hasn't or she hasn't followed the rules. So as a team, we discuss these rules, for example, not using the designated speaking area, etc. And we discuss all these things, and as a team, we decide where and how many marks we are going to deduct if a contestant is not following the rules. Similarly, like body language. So there are certain marks, certain points for body language. So we discuss openly, and we also decide when we say body language, what do we mean? Do we mean a lot of drama? Do we mean no body language? Because it's personal choice as well. And when we discuss, a lot of points come up, and most often we all end up deciding that whatever body language is, it needs to be supporting to the speech, and it needs to enhance the value of the speech, and nothing other than that. Only then we'll consider body language as body language. Because if we don't discuss these kind of things, it remains very subjective. Some judges might think that a lot of flailing of arms, etc., means body language, and they might really mark the contestant very high. So in a sense, what we do, we go through each of the criterion and we discuss them, and judges share their perception and experience, and then as a team we decide how we are going to mark it. Does that help? Hello, Toastmaster Khaled?
There is a question from Toastmaster Kushi.
Yes, Toastmaster Madhavi. Yes, it was very helpful. Of course, I would take this offline later on and maybe have more details into the judging briefing. But yeah, thank you so much for the answer. Thank you.
Anytime. I think there is a question for Toastmaster Kushi.
Question on the briefing agenda. There is an item.
Consideration for breaking the rules. Can you tell us more about this? Consideration and breaking the rules.
Yeah. As I just mentioned briefly, I'll just slightly elaborate on it. See, mainly one of the rules is not using the designated speaking area. Now this particular rule falls in the body language area. So we as the team, we normally ask the judges that just in case a contestant goes out of the designated speaking area, how much and where we are going to deduct the points. And normally we reach the consensus that we will all the judges, each judge will deduct 2 marks for breaking that rule, because we cannot disqualify on that basis. Similarly, it's not even a rule, it's a recommendation that the language used should be respectful to the audience. Now, sometimes a word or two, an expression or two might be used by the contestants, which might possibly be offensive to the audience. Now, we at the briefing decide in advance that if this kind of a thing happens, how many marks we are going to deduct, so that we don't go haywire, one judge deducting 10 marks and one judge deducting 1 mark. So we go in a uniform manner. Does that answer your question, Toastmaster Khushi?
Yes, the audio is not working. Okay, there is one question from Toastmaster Maram.
Okay.
She's asking if a contestant at the club level can be a chief judge at the club level.
Contestant at the club at the same event.
Yeah, different contest.
Different contest. If different contest is different event, yes.
But if they are at the same event,
Okay. Okay. There is a question on the case study. What could the chief judge do when a microphone does not function? Stop the contest or let the contestants give their speeches again with the functioning microphone?
Okay. Both were a possibility, but I will tell you I was the chief judge then, and I will tell you what I did. What had happened, the microphone went out of order at the time of the first contestant, right? So then I made all the 7 contestants speak without microphone, just to be fair, instead of cancelling the contest. That's what I did. So all of them had equal situation. But in this case, this was possible because at the judges' briefing, I had already briefed the judges, recommended to the judges to sit in the front or the second row so that if something goes wrong, they should be able to hear the contestant appropriately. So since all the judges were sitting in a very audible, at a very audible distance, that was possible to do. So none of the 7 contestants then used the microphone. So the contest went on without any interruption. Does that answer your question? I can't hear them.
Toastmaster Madhavi, this is Christy Klaturan.
Yes.
My question is, after the contest, there is an allegation of plagiarism and one contestant was disqualified by the judges. Thereafter, the contestant may not have an access to the chief judge, so they started chasing the judges since they know I was a judge. Example, started chasing us and putting allegations. You were biased, and it was unfair, and all those allegations comes up. Even though we defend chief judge and the judges, how to address this situation? We have cases even Toastmasters left the Toastmasters because of this, the club because of this such disqualification.
Okay, this sounds like a very, very unfortunate incident. I feel that if the protest procedure was taken up in an appropriate and tactful manner, this situation should not have risen. So I really don't know how it happened, but let me repeat the procedure. So once the protest for originality was made, as Toastmasters International says that only approximately 25% can be taken from different sources and 75% of the speech should be original. Now, once the protest is made, of course, the person who's making the protest has to justify the protest, right? On what basis he or she is making the protest to the chief judge or the contest chair. Now, once that happens, as I said earlier, the chief judge should invite the contestant in front of all the judges and give the contestant an opportunity to explain. Now, on the basis of that explanation, judges do the voting, whether the explanation was convincing to most of the judges or it was not convincing to the majority of the judges. and majority vote of the judges is accepted. So if the majority of the judges voted that the protest should be accepted, then that was the correct thing to do. And if the contestant was still being unpleasant, then probably he should be just directed to the chief judge, and chief judge is supposed to have the courage and tact enough to tackle this situation.
Good evening, Toastmaster Madhavi.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. It was very, very helpful. I have previously asked, but because there was a lot of noise, I could not actually hear your answer. My question was,
okay.
If, for example, if I was a contestant at my own club, but I was asked to be a chief judge in another Toastmaster club, is it possible or it's against rule? Because I know for judges, for contestants and judges, judge can be a judge at a club level, but no more.
I missed the initial part of your question. Your voice was breaking then, so could you please repeat it?
All right, apologies.
So sorry.
I was saying that if I was a contestant at my own club, but I was asked to be a chief judge for another club, is this okay? Or because I know the rule applies for judges and contestants. If a Toastmaster wants to contest at a club level, but is asked to be a chief, but he is asked to be a judge, it is okay at club level only, but no more. Does this rule apply for chief judges as well?
Let me clarify. Are you talking about the same contest?
No.
A different contest.
You mean you're talking about contest in terms of like, is it evaluation and humorous or what?
Absolutely, yeah. So you're talking about two different contests, that you are a contestant, but you are appointed a chief judge for. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry, but your voice was breaking. I could not hear you. Hello?
You're talking about
Maram, you're contesting an evaluation and you wanted to be a chief judge for international in another club contest. That's what you're asking?
No, I'm asking in general. Is there any exception or limitation to that?
No,
Even if I was for the same contest.
The rules that apply to judges, they apply to the chief judge as well.
So it's okay for me to be in humorous and evaluation and be chief judge for another club for humorous and evaluation?
But there are two different events on two different days and venues, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. So apparently we have run out of time. Thank you so much. It was very nice hearing you all. And if you have any more questions, you can always write to me and send. You will get my email address from the manual, which I am already requesting DTM Salim to upload for you. Thank you so much. Have a very good evening.
Thank you, Toastmaster Madhavi and DTM Joel, for the wonderful presentation. And thank you to all the District 20 members. I think now you all must be confident enough to take up the roles as judges and chief judge, right? So thank you all for participating in this webinar, and thanks to our program quality director who has initiated this event. Thanks once again. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.